Don't make a name for yourself as a cyberpunk by how you live. Make a name by how you die.
Cyberpunk Edgerunners may be the best game adaptation to date, and I'll even go so far in saying it's one of the best adaptations ever, including other media. There have been so many adaptations over time. Some have been amazing award-winning films, others are okay but have fallen a bit short of its original, some have started off amazing then crashed and burned in the finale, while others have been so bad that its creator questioned its existence on Reddit. Oftentimes, it's game adaptations which get the short end of the stick, at least until Arcane. Although Arcane was amazing, the game it adapts is not story focused, and the world the player fights in is in no way represented in the story. However, Cyberpunk Edgerunners not only accurately portrays the in-game world which was crafted by CDPR, but surprisingly adds greater depth and meaning to Cyberpunk. It's such a true representation of the source material and the Cyberpunk world that its creator Mike Pondsmith was celebrating on Reddit. Edgerunners is just built different.
I'm built different. I just know it.
Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a standalone David vs. Goliath story where David doesn't stand a chance due to the nature of the cyberpunk world. The near dystopian future that cyberpunk represents depicts what happens when hypercapitalism and corporate imperialism goes unchecked, eventually dominating on a global scale. In this corporate-dominated world, there is minimal to no upward social mobility, and this is where David starts, close to the bottom. His mother, who is that shining example of a strong-willed single parent, overworks herself as an EMT and moonlights as a black market dealer. She kleps or loots cyberware from dead cyberpsychers, eventually selling the stolen gear to pay for David's education, hoping he can break out of the cycle of generational poverty. Her exhaustion from overworking eventually leads to her freezing up during a life-threatening random gang attack on Corpos. This is where Edgerunners hits you over the head with the cruelty bat, just in case you weren't paying attention to the world building before. Trauma Team arrives, but only saves those with the Platinum tier insurance. David brings his mother to a Ripper dock, but despite all her savings, it's not enough to pay for her treatment, and David can't even afford visitation. Ultimately, she dies off screen and her ashes are spat out of a multi-slot vending machine. The fact that there's a vending machine for cremation really emphasizes that loads of people die and can't afford funeral services. A Cyberpunk 2077 player might even read into this scene a little further. Since there's no visitation, there's actually a decent chance that the Ripper Doc didn't bother treating her and maybe sold some parts instead.
I don't want to die!
Like the world it is set in, Edgerunners is fast-paced and gives no time for David to mourn since there's bills to pay and he comes to a crossroads. Sell the cyberware his mother klept for some temporary cash, or do his best to become an Edgerunner and break out of poverty as a hired merc or cyberpunk. Although the main character, being a high school student, is a typical anime trope, David's willingness to adopt to other people's dreams is key to the overall story. At first, I was a bit concerned that there could be an oversaturation of anime cliches like yelling the name of your attack, being a high school student, and plot or fan service. However, David very quickly abandons high school never to return, and Edgerunners has Cyberpunk 2077's approach to fan service and nudity. That is, there's plenty because sex dominates advertisements, but they don't have the absurd physics and animations that anime often has. Speaking of animation, although I've only seen a few of Studio Trigger's anime like Kill la Kill, Darling in the Franxx, to me the most memorable one was Gurren Lagann, even though it's not really by Trigger. Gurren Lagann is one of my favorite anime, and based on what I've seen, Trigger excels at over-the-top action sequences, where every scene tries to one-up the last one, escalating until they inevitably reach space. Their expertise seemingly lined up perfectly with Cyberpunk's explosive and gory combat. In a world where you can have thin layers of bulletproof armor implanted under your skin and in your clothing, you're gonna need some impressive and over-the-top firepower. Trigger's portrayal of Cyberpunk's combat is exceptional, sometimes even better than in-game, with loads of blood, guts, eyeballs, and bones splattering all over the place. Sure, there's some things that aren't in-game, like dual-wielding or juggling bodies with consecutive shots from a Carnage shotgun, but it doesn't feel out of place. Trigger also successfully showcases various weapons featured in the game with great accuracy, including quick hacks, power weapons, max-tac tech guns, Arasaka smart bullet tracing guns, and cyberware. There's even the classic shoot the grenade out of the sky move. Cyberware certainly deserves a highlight here. The portrayal of the Sandevistan bullet time combined with reinforced tendons or the in-game double jump is amazing. Cutting between the install feature you see at Ripperdocs and that beautiful layered afterimage. Afterwards, the whole sequence is shown from the perspective of non-Sandevistan users as a quick kill in real time. It's just so freaking cool. The overlays, whether that be text messages, breach protocol, and camera hacking, are all on point. The diegetic sound from weapons to pedestrian crossings to phone calls are all from in-game. The costume and character design are all accurate as well. Of course, there's music. Cyberpunk 2077 has some banger music which you can listen to through multiple radio stations and just general combat or ambient music. Edgerunners uses a lot of songs featured in-game and some original scores which are also really good. The music and lyrics are in perfect sync with shifts in the story. It feels as though there are songs that are just made for the anime, however they've been present in the game since launch. If you like the music in Edgerunners, there's at least 10 times more in all kinds of genres in-game. Even if you don't play the game, just look them up, they're so good. The music really just adds to the roller coaster of emotions that you experience when watching Edgerunners. Another point that is mandatory to discuss are the settings or backgrounds. I have over 1,700 hours in Cyberpunk 2077, and I'd estimate that roughly 98% of scenes are set in places that you can visit in-game, and Trigger clearly included very recognizable landmarks. In fact, it's easier to name the scenes that you can't visit rather than the ones you can. I believe the places that you can't visit are David's classroom, inside the train cars, the interior of Lucy's apartment, the moon, and maybe some scenes from Lucy's backstory. That's it. I'm pretty sure every other scene, even the short ones in David's training montage, can be visited by the player in Cyberpunk 2077. There's this one chase scene that I wanted to highlight, where they drive through a fair chunk of the city, and after driving through the same route in-game, it's all meticulously copied, street by street. The lighting, the roads are all on point. It's truly impressive that Trigger's commitment to detail and accuracy mirrors that of CDPR, and as a player, it ends up feeling like they filmed a TV series in your hometown. While there are so many things that are amazing in Edgerunners, there are some things that could be better. First of all, where are the mechs? There's some powerful mechs used by Militech, Arasaka, and even the NCPD that are included in Cyberpunk 2077. There's also those other robots or androids that you can encounter in game. I'm a little surprised that they weren't included in the anime, because they'd make for some cool fights. The next thing I want to discuss were the phone calls. I watched the series in both Japanese with subs and the English version. The way the calls are performed in the dub version is just really awkward. I know they're reading the text on screen, but it sounds pretty robotic and they're constantly repeating words for some reason. However, in the Japanese version, it just feels like a regular phone call.
Whoa, rare call. Butt dial? Even possible on this?
Kiwi, hey.
What's up?
Nah, nothing. Just a question need to ask.
あんたから連絡くれるなんて珍しいね。久しぶり。どうかした？少し聞きたいことがあって。何かしら？
Moping, waiting, always is. You. Wants you back ASAP. So obvious.
Yeah, I know.
Still a no-go?
Nah, no, not yet. Got something but can't, just gotta do it. Won't take long, not long.
Okay.
デイビッドはあんたがその気になるまで待つつもりみたいだけど。 本当はすぐに戻ってほしいと思ってるよ。分かってる。まだ無理なの？今はまだね。でももうすぐ終わりそうだから。
Another point is I feel like they could have spent a bit more time with the world building, especially when it came to rival corporations Militech and Arasaka. There's a couple of times when Arasaka sends out Tiger Claw members to attack people, and in the English version they're actually speaking Japanese, but none of the Arasaka employees do so. So it might be a little bit hard to understand a lot about Arasaka without having prior knowledge. Lastly, there's MaxStack. So it's clear that MaxStack are very strong and a constant threat to the crew and cyber psychos. However, in Cyberpunk 2077, MaxStack are portrayed as former cyber psychos who get captured and recruited into MaxStack to hunt down fellow cyber psychos. Maybe the first guy was just too strong to be captured alive, but I don't think there's much showing the fact that MaxStack actually recruits cyber psychos into their forces.
You felt him die. Did you like it? That split second when the blood still flows, but his light's gone out?
On the flip side, one of the best aspects of the anime are the characters. A couple of crucial distinguishing factors between the anime and the game is character development and the experience of being in Night City with a crew. I personally enjoyed all the characters in Edgerunners, and as soon as I watched the first few episodes, I knew there'd be some trashy debate from anime fans about best waifu or husbando. I personally enjoyed that they didn't spend too much time delving into the past of all the characters with very quick flashbacks, keeping the anime fast-paced, matching the sense of urgency that's inherent in Night City. Unlike in-game, David has a defined character. He has clear motivations even if they're adopted from other people, they're set goals, and his grit establishes strong relationships with others. On the other hand, V's motivation and relationships are completely up to the player to decide and can change throughout a playthrough. This puts a lot of responsibility on the player to roleplay and establish those relationships with others. Or alternatively, you can burn down every potential relationship, abandoning people in order to save yourself. Edgerunners made me wish that Cyberpunk 2077 had cooperative options, so I could form a crew with friends and take on Night City together. In the beginning of this video, I argued that Cyberpunk Edgerunners should be in the conversation for one of the best adaptations ever. I've already discussed the almost exact replica of Night City that is being portrayed, but there's a few things which are better than Cyberpunk 2077. This next section will compare the anime to the game, and there's no way to discuss this without the heaviest of spoilers. You've been warned. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is canon, and since it's canon, it contributes to the world and adds more depth in areas that may have been lacking in Cyberpunk 2077. Starting with the portrayal of cyberpsychosis. In Cyberpunk 2077, cyberpsychosis is treated with an air of mystery, and very early on in the game, you receive a call from Regina, the fixer in Watson, getting told she's experimenting with possible cures. When you eventually go through and complete the gigs, you'll notice common themes: psychological trauma and cyberware implants. Throughout the game, there's of course this notion that since cyberpsychosis is not properly understood by the general populace, it can be easily used as a scapegoat for rebellious behavior or a justification for murdering people. Good examples are in the in-game news reports or even discussing the topics with Ripper docs.
And they all agree. A psychoactive agent has been dispersed at the site, affecting those in the crowd.
One of my clients, he lose his mind right here in this chair. He howl like an animal, expose his blades. He charge me. Then I have no gun, only a scalpel. I try to defend myself, but I lose one eye, 4 fingers, and a kidney. Still, I survive it, as you see.
This patient of yours, cyberpsycho, you think?
I do not know. For me, cyberpsychosis is an empty word. A label we give to people who are bad, evil, from cyberware or not.
Despite all this, the player character, V, shows very minimal signs of cyberpsychosis until they get Silverhand thrown into their head, and even then, most of the shaky hands and falling over moments are attributed to relic malfunctions rather than an overload of cyberware and trauma. There's an argument to be had that the relic and Silverhand help to prevent cyberpsychosis, but I think getting your body's genetic code to be rewritten as Silverhand would definitely mess things up more than stabilizing V. One other note is that you can also get quite a lot of chrome before even getting the biochip in V's head in Act 1 with no apparent side effects. However, in Edgerunners, characters are shown gradually falling into psychosis. Maine, for example, slowly losing his grip on the present and eventually turning on his crew. There's David as well, who follows in Maine's footsteps. He becomes addicted to upgrading himself, and you can see his sanity gradually chips away as members of the crew pass away and worsens as Lucy leaves the crew to protect him. Ever since the launch of Cyberpunk 2077, I've argued that V's story is heavily hindered by poor balance. V can achieve god-tier levels of damage or survivability, making it feel like you can take on the corporate giants easily. This makes everyone that came before V seem extremely weak or just plain incompetent. However, in Edgerunners, every character has a specific role in the crew and has strengths and weaknesses. Victory rarely feels guaranteed, and a couple of characters die suddenly. Diving into specific examples: Lucy and netrunning. Lucy is depicted as a top-tier protege netrunner, but even then she is bound by the theoretical downsides of netrunning, the time that's required to hack, and also she's flat out denied by powerful ice or firewalls such as Smasher's defenses. V, on the other hand, has almost immediate access to Kuroshi optics, which functions similar to Sandevistan's. Quick hacks can also be used on bosses, and memory wipe is just ridiculous. It literally makes enemies forget that you're present, and then you can do whatever you want to them. David and Sandevistan. Despite his high tolerance for cyberware, his Sandevistans and cyberware usage often results in side effects such as him blacking out or getting nosebleeds and eventually going cyber psycho. However, in Cyberpunk 2077, the cyberware often has less than a minute cooldown, no limit to how often you can use it, and no side effects. Sandevistans in particular allow you to dodge any attack by moving just slightly and murdering everything before the bullet time mechanic runs out. It makes me question whether the Edgerunners just had terrible builds. The obvious example is Adam Smasher.
Smasher. Told you, Johnny boy. Told you I'd end you someday.
For most versions of Cyberpunk 2077, Smasher has not been a threat to the player with a decent build, no matter the difficulty. In patches before they gave him invuln phases, I was able to one-shot Adam Smasher with tech weapons.
Smasher! I fucking knew it!
You can also humiliate him in various other ways, like even using the turrets in the arena. However, in Edgerunners, he's a badass.
Who the fuck are you?
Using Sandevistans to keep in step with David, squishing Rebecca, and ripping David apart. He's all the more impressive when you consider cyber psychosis. Given that Cyberpunk 2077 is in its most balanced state since launch, it's not as bad as it once was, but if you have enough DPS in your build, he's still a pushover that often hits himself with his own rockets and just can't keep up with Sandevistans. Overall, Edgerunner sets a new bar for adaptation, including all mediums, not just anime. The level of accuracy compared to the source material is second to none, and shows just how good collaboration between various studios and creators can be. I really enjoyed Edgerunners and the crew working together. It made me want to co-op in Cyberpunk to struggle against Night City amongst friends. Whether you watched the anime first or played the game first, they both contribute to each other's stories and add more detail and meaning. Don't forget to head to the afterlife and have a David Martinez. Let me know what you guys thought of the anime. Plenty more Cyberpunk videos to make. See you next time, Tubes.
Is there really no other way? Guess I meant, I don't know, a happier ending for everyone involved.
Here, for folks like us, wrong city, wrong people.
Why'd you get so mad then? If you already knew who won.
Oh no, really. Guess I like to think about where Walsh might have tripped up.
Any theories?
Entering the ring against a stronger opponent, but feels a little strange to call that a mistake.